welcome back to another edition of the Daily Memphians Memphis Grizzlies podcast. This is your host, Drew Hill, joined as always by Daily Memphian columnist Chris Herrington. Another Grizzlies pod in the middle of absolutely nothing going on in the world of the NBA. So in the world of the Grizzlies, if you live in Los Angeles, there's kind of some stuff going on. I guess there's one that it is relevant to one team in the NBA. Actually, maybe two. We got the Kawhi Leonard stuff happening as well.
Both LA teams are making some news. The Grizzlies right now, not so much.
Yeah. So we have come up with a list. This is how this podcast will work. I'm not going to call these predictions. I don't want to get an email that says I can't believe you predicted that. These are just possibilities. You're calling them takes. I think even takes might be too strong. They're possibilities that Chris and I are going to throw out to each other. And Chris is going to bounce back with a level of wing spiciness for each take or possibility, whatever you would like to call them. What are our categories again, Chris? What are the three categories you're going to go with?
Right. But because we're in Memphis, we're not doing hot takes. We're doing hot wing takes. And so they will be judged on a traditional hot wing, Scoville-style hot wing ranking. But let's limit it to three, because I don't want to think about what's how hot is a lemon pepper necessarily. So to me, your basic heatness level would be your honey gold, which is not very spicy, your basic buffalo wing, which has some kick to it, and then your suicide, right? Unless you have another one you want to throw in.
So we're going honey gold, regular, and suicide. Those are the three flavors we're going with?
Yeah.
Okay. I like it. So I have 5 items that I came up with. You have 6. You have some general NBA ones. I'm going to leave the adventure up to you, Chris. Where do you want to start? Do we want to start with Grizzlies or general NBA?
Well, if we're going to try to get through all of them, and we don't know if we will, we probably will, and we're going to go back and forth. Probably makes sense to start with me since I have 6, and that way I don't double up at any point. So I will start with a Grizzlies take, and to sort of elaborate on your point, these aren't necessarily predictions I believe in, but they are things I've thought about I think could happen. I'm not sure whether I will predict them or not. I got time before the beginning of the season to make official predictions. These are more predictions I'm contemplating. I think are in the realm of possibility. I think they could happen, but I'm not necessarily thinking I think they will happen, but I think they could, right? And so my first take is a Grizzlies take. I'm going to say the leading scorer for the 2026-2027 Memphis Grizzlies will be Cedric Coward in year 2. Who makes the leap from, I think, 14 points a game, 13 points after last year, breaks 20 points a game, and is the leading scorer for the Memphis Grizzlies this season.
It's funny because I have that exact same one that I was going to throw out with a different name.
Okay.
So I think it has to be at least regular heat. I think that has to be at least regular heat.
Because there's not an obvious answer to the question, right?
Right, but I think that's climbing the ranks of spiciness a little bit. Because as I think about who will be most involved in the offense, who's gonna be part of the action the most, Cedric Coward may not be in the top 3 of that list. And so
interesting.
I have the same question. I think we can go more into detail, but I'll just throw mine out there since it's so similar.
Let's pair them up.
I asked that question of Ty Jerome. What do you think about that?
I think points per minute, it could be Ty Jerome. I think given the depth, I thought about Ty Jerome. Obviously, there are a few players you think about here. I'm gonna give yours. I'm gonna give yours a regular, but a little bit more pizzazz than mine. I think your take is a little bit more heat than mine, but still in the regular zone. You're not predicting Cam Spencer. That'd be a suicide take. My thing on Jerome, you're right, Jerome is more central to the offense, clearly, the function of the offense when he's on the floor. I don't think he'll be on the floor as much as Cedric Coward, which is part of my thing. I think there's so much depth at the guard position, and there's enough awareness around health with him that I think his minutes per game will be lower. I also think there's more potential for him to miss games, which impacts that if you don't play enough to qualify. There's also more potential he gets traded, right? And so I think there are all kinds of reasons that hurdles for Jerome to pass to turn per minute scoring into per game scoring. So, and I just believe in Coward taking the leap as a shooter. And
Yeah.
so
Here's the thing. Because I considered the trade possibility as well, I listed my take as points per game. Maybe I didn't explain it, but I think points per game, being a 20-plus point scorer and leading the team in points per game at the time of a potential trade would count in this scenario.
Okay.
I think Coward is a possibility because if he does make the shooting leap, and he shot 33.8% from three last year, I just pulled up his numbers, he is going to be a benefactor of these actions that I'm talking about, right? If you have, Jerome and Boozer or Pippen and Boozer involved in some sort of pick and roll, and Boozer's a great passer, so you're probably going to get a lot of weak side threes from Cedric Coward. If he's making those on a consistent basis, I think that's what opens the door for your possibility here. I think then you turn around and you look at Ty Jerome and you're like, he's going to have the ball in his hands a lot. He's going to have Boozer and Edey screening for him a lot. Maybe that opens the door for some of the assist numbers to come up more. But he did average 19 points per game last season for the Grizzlies in the limited amount of games he did play. He was extremely efficient. And I think if the team is competitive enough that he will also play a decent amount of minutes, there's nothing that says you can't play him and Pippen together, right? Like that they might play together quite a bit.
That was the idea when they signed Jerome. They wanted to play Jerome and Pippen together. That was going to be their second unit backcourt behind Morant and Jalen Wells or whoever.
Right. So it's like, but even as you think about the starting lineup now and like, are they going to go big? Are they going to go smaller? Like somebody's going to have to come off the bench that wasn't last year. And so, yeah, I think that I think that both takes are moderately spicy here. I think the pathway for Coward is more so, like I said, converting on those weak side threes. The pathway for Jerome is to also take advantage of Boozer's passing, but also be the guy that's going to have the ball more times than not in these sorts of scenarios. So I could see either one. Like, I think both players are a possibility, and then when you want to throw in the other guys that are a possibility, you got to say Cam Boozer, and you probably have to at least consider Zach Edey, although that feels maybe a little less likely, maybe a little spicier on him.
Yeah, I think, the touches and the minutes are both somewhat harder to come by given, the position and the question about his ankle and how many games he'll play and how many minutes he'll play and all that. Yeah, so I'm rating both of those similar takes, regular hot takes, but I think you sprinkled a little bit more cayenne on yours than I did there. So we'll come back to me since we sort of paired those up. So I've got a mix. I got a couple of Grizzlies and a couple of general NBA and a couple that are kind of both a little bit related. So I'll go to one of my general NBA takes. I'm going to say next season because I think they still have the 65 game rule on some of these awards. I think because Wemby doesn't hit the 65 games, he didn't hit it last year, 64. Because Wemby doesn't hit the games, there's voter fatigue on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I think the Nuggets and Lakers are a little disappointing in the regular season. I think that opens the door for the first American MVP since 2018 when James Harden won. There will be an American MVP of the NBA. There are a few different players I think it could be. I'm going to predict Anthony Edwards as a surprise MVP, bringing the trophy back to the United States.
I like Anthony Edwards as much as the next person, and I'm a big fan of watching him play. I think the way he plays the game is very admirable, the way he plays on both ends, and is super aggressive, and he's getting better. But ultimately, the MVP is a numbers game. It's just a numbers game. And I think that, a lot of the voters, when you think about who they are going to be basketball nerds. So there's a statistical gap that I think Anthony Edwards still has to close on that top group, even if the Lakers and Nuggets are a little disappointing. It's hard to imagine a season in which Jokic and Doncic aren't absolutely throwing up crazy stats, that's pretty spicy. Like, I'm leaning on the suicide side on that one. I'll give that the suicide denomination here, but I guess it might be a touch below the hottest of hot takes. I like Anthony Edwards a lot, but man, those are a lot of hypotheticals that you just threw out there to try to get there.
Yeah, no, it's true. Let me ask you this: if we stipulated there will be an American MVP, would Edwards be your pick? Would it be Cade Cunningham, Jalen Brunson coming off the big title? I toyed with a LeBron James MVP, age 40 MVP pick, leading the Sixers to a number 1 seed in the East. If you had to pick an American MVP, who would it be?
I think Edwards and Cunningham are the leaders in the clubhouse there. There is maybe an outside scenario on the LeBron James thing if it's like announced that he's not going to play the next season. Didn't he sign a 2-year deal with the Sixers?
He did.
2 years? Yeah. So if it's understood he's not going to play again and he has a great year and the Sixers are in first place, maybe you get there as a storyline MVP with him. But is he going to get to 65 games, with the way that they're going to try to load up for the playoffs and try to really go all in on that? Probably not.
Right. Yeah.
So I think Edwards is probably, if the Timberwolves are incredibly good and they can get up there in the conversation with the Spurs and the Thunder, then maybe. If Wemby plays 65 games, it's going to feel like it's his MVP to lose, So I think I'd probably go Edwards with Cunningham second. And it just feels like Detroit might be a little bit more volatile than the Timberwolves, especially given that the East has gotten a little stronger now. So I would probably go Edwards on that. Okay, I'm going to move on to my next thing on the list, and that is on total minutes on the season, on the Grizzlies season, in terms of total minutes played. Isaiah Stewart plays more total minutes on the season than Zach Edey. Your thoughts?
That's interesting because the Stewart is not like an 82-game guy either.
No, he's not.
I think you book in 15 to 20 minutes a game. I don't think it's interesting if you tie that to a season win total prediction. Like, I don't think that would be a great sign for the Grizzlies if that ends up being true. But I think that could end up being true. I'm going to give that. It's spicy in the sense of like what it could mean and the meaning of that. It's an interesting one. I'm going to give it a regular with some extra spice. That's sort of your lane right now. You're not gotten too far afield, but they got some kick to them. I'm going to give that a regular with a little extra heat, whatever's between regular and suicide. I think that might end up being true though.
Here's the way I thought about it.
I think if that were like, bet that or not bet that, I would probably bet that.
Here's the way I thought about it. They don't have a ton of back-to-backs this year. The schedule broke in a way that was beneficial to them in that way. Do we really think Zach Edey's going to be playing back-to-backs coming off a second ankle procedure? I don't know the answer to that, but it seems doubtful.
No one has said or suggested anything about that from the Grizzlies, but until I hear otherwise, I assume he is not playing back-to-backs.
So there's that. There's also the fact that they're just generally going to be careful with him, right? I don't think he's going to be playing monster minutes. And then when you look at the difference between the two players and what they played last year, Isaiah Stewart was a bench player for the Pistons last year on a good competitive team and played 21 minutes a game, right in that range, 19 to 21 minutes a game. And then you look at Edey, who was playing 25 minutes a game. Now, neither player has been super reliable in terms of being able to stay on the court and avoid injuries. But I think if Isaiah Stewart gets to 60, 65 games, then that's going to probably be more games than Zach Edey, and that might be enough to make up the minutes difference. I think it's going to be close. That's why I kind of liked this as a possibility that we were going to throw out there.
Well, here's another thing in the favor of your prediction. Because it's not like the center position.
Not a prediction. Not a prediction.
Yeah, potential take. Thing that could happen. It's not like the center position is the only position where there could be injuries. Like there could be injuries everywhere, as we know. So I think we both think there will be nights when one or the other is not playing, right? Either Edie's out or Stewart's out, right? Imagine on those nights, there's an absence in the power forward rotation. Jeremy Grant sprained an ankle, whatever. Stewart, I think, could shift and get minutes at the 4 playing with Quentin Post. Edie, that's less likely to happen with Edie. Edie's not going to play minutes with Quentin Post when you're down a power forward and you're trying to come up with different kind of lineup. So I think there's also more paths for Stewart to soak up minutes in other spots other than the center position. So that'll also open up potentially more avenues for playing time for him.
Yeah. I thought it was pretty close, and that was a pretty fun one. Okay, go ahead with your next one, Chris.
All right, I'll go back since I went away from the Grizzlies with my last. I'll go back to the Grizzlies one. The Grizzlies leader this season in total made 3-point shots, not per game, but total made 3-point shots will be 19-year-old rookie power forward Cameron Boozer.
Wow. I have a 3.1 on my list too, and that's kind of hard for me to wrap my head around. I do think that it is possible he's going to get up 5 or 6 a game.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think on volume who might be close to that. Jerome.
So here's my rationale. Here's why. Playing time. I think, anybody could get injured, but he seems pretty durable. He's young. I think he is more likely than some of the other candidates to play 70-plus games, and he is more likely to play, let's say, 28-plus minutes per game in the games he does play. So I think from a minute standpoint, I think he's just going to accumulate more minutes. He's a better path to accumulating many more minutes than, say, Ty Jerome or especially Cam Spencer, who's probably going to be the leader in three-point percentage on the team, and some other guys. And I think he'll be a good three-point shooter, like a really good three-point shooter. And I think playing with Edie and Stewart is going to push him more to the perimeter than he was in college. I think it's going to be a really significant part of his game, and he's going to be on the court a whole lot. That's my rationale.
Yeah, I think that all makes sense. I wonder if your first take or possibility can happen if this possibility comes true, right? If Cam Boozer's the leading 3-point shooter in terms of makes on the Grizzlies, will Cedric Coward be the leading scorer? I don't think so.
I think Coward's going to score more at the rim. I think it's going to be positional inverse maybe. But you're right. They're in conflict a little bit.
I'm going to give this a regular. I'm going to give this a regular heat. I think you're right. I think it's based purely on minutes alone. I think you're going to open the door. And then when you think about volume, he is going to be one of the players that I expect to have a higher volume than others in terms of 3-point shots over the course of a game. And if he shoots 38% or 37% from 3 as a rookie in the NBA, he's got a real chance to get there. So, I think this is regular, maybe bordering a little lower towards the honey gold on this one.
Okay. Hey, honey gold's very popular. It's not me. I like some heat on my wing. I'm not a honey gold guy, but it's very, very popular.
Okay. One of the ones that I considered, and I don't even know if I wrote this down on my list. Let me check real quick. I was considering, I did write this one down. The Grizzlies will have 7 different players shoot 37% or better from 3 this season.
Jerome, Spencer, Boozer. Are we seeing Javon Small? Is he on your list?
Coward, if he can get there.
Oh, Coward a leap. Jalen Wells should. It's time for Jalen Wells to make that leap.
Jalen Wells. So I had Pippen.
Jeremy Grant hit that last year.
Pippen, Wells, Jerome, Jeremy Grant, potentially Quentin Post, potentially Cedric Coward, Cam Spencer almost certainly, Cameron Boozer, potentially, Gigi Jackson, less likely, but we'll see. Will Richie Saunders get in games or play for the Grizzlies? I don't know. I think it's possible to get to 7. Not all those guys will get to 37%, but I think it's possible. And I went with that number because if you go look over Grizzlies history, they haven't had that. Like it's always been 5 or 6 guys at 37%. 37%, obviously a good mark. I think it's possible you could get to 7.
No, it's interesting. It's suggestive that this could be a pretty good 3-point shooting team because you think about the past, like, you always had Ja with the ball a lot, took up a lot of minutes, had the ball, not a 3-point shooter. There's nobody like that in the backcourt, for better or worse, right? There's nobody like Ja in the backcourt, but there's nobody like Ja as a shooter in the backcourt. Dylan Brooks was super erratic, shot the ball a lot, but I don't think if he's ever hit 38% on a season. If so, it was a career high. Better pure shooters probably on the perimeter than Dylan. Even in the front court, like Steven Adams is a total non-shooter. Jonas pretty much a non-shooter. Edey kinda, but Edey could hit that number on very low attempts, right? Like that's something that could happen if he's taking one every other game wide open as a trail. We've seen he can make that shot. He probably shot something like close to that his rookie year from 3. There's not really a total non-shooter out there or a high volume bad shooter. And so I'm going to give that, it sounds provocative when you say it, but when you get into the details, I think that could happen. I'm going to say that's a smooth honey gold as well on the 3-point shooting. Yeah.
Well, that wraps up the 3-point segment. I do think we say this, but like, surely the one player we didn't name was Omax, who shot 40% from 3 last year, and then you never know. 37%. If we tick that up to 38 or 38.5, I don't think we're getting to 7. I think 37% is kind of the sweet spot number there, but it's hard to find guys that you don't like. I feel pretty good that Scottie Pippen is going to get to that number. I feel pretty good Ty Jerome will get to that number. I feel great about Cam Spencer getting to that number.
Pippen's percentage was not good last year. We only played like 10 games. But before that, he was a career 40% 3-point shooter on like 300 attempts or something like that. Yeah.
I think really it comes down to like, do you have belief that Cedric Coward will get there? Will Cam Boozer get there?
Yeah.
Those are the real questions, and those kind of have to happen to get to 7. But they haven't had 7 in that category. I think I went back 3 or 4 years, so it's always been less than that. I think there's a chance for this team to be a better 3-point shooting team this year. Okay, your next one.
All right, so I got 3 more. You got 2 more. Is that right?
Yes. All
right, so this one is not. This is a more general NBA, but it has a Grizzlies connection to it. Cameron Boozer will make first team all rookie. He will be joined by Caleb Wilson of the Chicago Bulls. He will be joined by Braden Burries of the Milwaukee Bucks. He will be joined by Yaxel Lindenberg of the Golden State Warriors. And here's the take. He will be joined by only one of the top 2 picks in the draft. Only one of DeBanza or Peterson will make first team all rookie. One of them will have a disappointing rookie season and drop to second team. I'm going to say it's DeBanza who surprises people with the disappointing rookie season and does not make first team all rookie.
Man, that's spicy. That's not. I'm not going to give that the suicide take, but I'm gonna put a spicy regular on that. Just because I think you're right in the DeBanza thing. I think actually it kind of applies to both players that they are playing on teams that have talent around them that's been in the league for a while and may take away some opportunity, and so it might open the door for a disappointment from one of those guys. But the talent is there. I mean, we saw how good both of them looked in Summer League between Peterson and DeBanza. It's hard to get there. And then you just, on top of that, for you to throw Braden Burries in there, who also looked good in Summer League, that has to happen too in order to make this the case. I think that's where you start adding some of the spice. I know that's your guy. You liked him through the draft process.
Yeah.
And maybe he will, end up in that spot. But again, that's another one of these things where you've added so many hypotheticals. It feels like that it makes it more spicy. I think it's very reasonable to think maybe Peterson or Debanza won't make first team all rookie.
Let me be clear. I had a lot of wind up as to how I got there, but the take is not that Burries will be first team all rookie or Lindenberg. That's sort of who I threw in there.
Okay.
Maybe it's somebody else. Maybe it's Perez, Johnson, or maybe it's whoever. The take is that only one of the top 2 picks will make.
Well, that's regular. That's regular. I think
that's regular. I think that's pretty spicy.
That's pretty spicy. It's regular, leaning towards the spicier side. When you look at Peterson and what he's set up around,
I think there's a little sprinkle of ghost. I think there's a sprinkle of ghost pepper on that Buffalo.
There's some heat to it. There's definitely some more heat to it, but I'm not gonna move it all the way up because of this. Peterson's gonna be playing alongside Keontae George, who had a breakout and is kind of a high volume scorer and is gonna have the ball in addition to Peterson. He's also gonna be playing alongside Jaren Jackson Jr. and Lauri Markkanen, who both score the ball as well and are talented offensive players. And so he's almost got so many good players around him that if the team is really good, maybe that helps elevate him to a first-team all-rookie player. But statistically, it actually might present a little bit more of a challenge to get there. I just think he's so good that he's going to get there based on what we saw, because I was really impressed with his first step and just the way that he was able to control games in Summer League, and I just think he's an awesomely talented player. I feel the same way about Debanza, and so that's probably why we're saying there's some more spice to this. But Debanza's also going to be playing potentially alongside Anthony Davis, potentially alongside Trae Young. There's going to be, the ball. There's only one ball, right? And so there's going to be other players that are going to be posting big stats on that team, and finding out where he's going to fit in the team isn't just like some sort of cakewalk where you're just turning the team over to him on day one. And so I think the teams that they play for specifically is what opens the door for that to become a possibility. But yes, it's a little bit more spicy than the regular. I just don't think I'm willing to go all the way to the top yet on that one.
It's a Buffalo ghost pepper.
Yeah, sure.
I'm inventing a wing.
Okay.
Maybe it's a Cajun dry rub with some extra cayenne.
There we go. Yeah. Okay, here's my next one. I'll save the most basic one for last. One of these guards will be traded by the end of the trade deadline. Ty Jerome, Scottie Pippen Jr., Cam Spencer, Javon Small. Notably did not include Walter Clayton Jr.
I don't think that has a lot of heat to it, because I think they have a crowd, and I think they like all those players, but I also think philosophically they don't want that many small guards. I think they want a bigger backcourt going forward, generally speaking. I'm gonna say it's flavorful, but doesn't have much heat to it. I'm gonna say it's more like a garlic parmesan wing.
This is where we're getting into the lemon pepper territory.
Yeah, the lemon pepper. I don't. It's interesting to me. I think there's a very good chance that either Jerome or Pippen are moved by the trade deadline. I think they love Cam Spencer, and he's on the best contract of all those guys. And Javon Small, there's not as much trade value there. And I think you could look up, and I don't know if I believe this, but you could say Javon Small is going to be as good as Scottie Pippen if he's not already, right? That kind of thing. And then Jerome, it's a matter of trade value, right? Like if he's having a good season and they see him at age 29, there's injury history, he's going to be able to opt out into free agency next summer. We're not sure long term. Someone's offering us a good return. We need to do this. I think there's a good chance they would reluctantly get to that point with him. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree on your Cam Spencer part of that. He was just kind of tossed in because he's mixed with the guys you'd be considered to be point guards in there.
Sure.
But he is on a great contract, and they clearly like him, and there's good value there. So I think he's not very likely. The Jerome thing is interesting. It also, I think, depends on how competitive the team is. Because if the Grizzlies are just not going to be in a play-in spot, but he's really good, and there's some contender that wants to add him, I think, that opens the door potentially to a trade with him. And then the Javon Small thing is interesting because he's on a two-way contract right now. Is he going to end up on a standard contract at some point this season? I think is a interesting question as well. And it just feels like those are 4 quality NBA level point guards. And are you really going to continue to carry 4 of those guys? I do think that's a honey gold take. So I put that one out there. Okay, you go ahead.
All right. So we got 3 takes left. We'll try to speed through these a little bit. My next one is a non-Grizzlies. It's a general NBA take. I'm not sure if I will actually end up predicting this, but I am toying with it here in the middle of the summer. Your 2026, 2027 NBA champions will be the Indiana Pacers.
NBA champions?
That's what I said. What I said.
Yeah, that's a suicide take. Yeah.
Got to Game 7 against the Thunder 2 years ago.
No.
Halliburton's coming back. They've added Zubac. They've added Kelly Oubre to the bench. Everybody else is basically back. Zubac over in for Miles Turner. Good depth, good coaching.
Yeah.
You're NBA champions.
No, they'll be a solid team. Tyrese Halliburton hasn't played basketball in a year. I don't know if
that's a problem.
He was like out of shape and like had a battle with, I think, shingles, or was that what it was?
I'm putting this on hold till preseason. Let me see him on the court a little bit. Yeah.
So that's a suicide take.
All right, there we go. I wanted a flat out suicide.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. The East is also more competitive, as we've underlined. I think the Heat will be better than the Bucks were last year. So you're going to have to go through a Giannis. You're now going to have to go through a loaded up Philadelphia team. You're going to have to go through the Knicks. The Celtics remain competitive at all times. Could it happen? I'm not saying it's impossible, but
and then if you get through all that, you still got to win the NBA Finals. I could have made it an Eastern Conference champ pick, but I decided to go all the way.
Well, there you go. You got the suicide denomination that you wanted.
Yeah.
All right, last one for me. The Memphis Grizzlies will win 37 games and earn a play-in spot in the Western Conference.
I'm looking for my black hat for my last one, but I don't have one to put on. You're going to be the good guy. You got the white hat on.
I just put you in a bad spot. My bad. Yeah. Yep. Hand up
Grizzlies,
on that
37 wins play-in team. I think I'm not going to insult the Grizzlies to say that's a suicide pick. It is almost 10 games above what the Vegas over-under will be. I think that's the upside. I think that could absolutely happen, but I think that is an upside. That is a lot of things go right particularly in terms of health and availability of Zach Edey, which I think is the most important thing to drive their win-loss. I do think it's not. Did you say last play-in team? What'd you say?
They'll get a play-in spot.
Yeah, I think there's at least a couple play-in spots, maybe all 4, that are very up for grabs in the West. Like, is it hard for me to imagine the Grizzlies being better than the Phoenix Suns or the Portland Trailblazers or the Dallas Mavericks or even the Utah Jazz? No, I mean, I think almost everyone except for Sacramento can dream about a play-in spot in the West. So I'm gonna give that. You're just right in the zone of like regular with a little extra kick. That's another like Cajun spice with extra cayenne kind of pick. If you said they made the top 6, that'd be a suicide pick. But I think play-in is more of a regular Heat with some kick.
Ty Jerome recently went on. I can't find the name of the podcast. I really wish I could give them credit. But he went on a University of Virginia-based podcast recently. Anthony Sane tweeted out a clip of it. And he essentially was asked about their expectations for the season, and he said something, I'm paraphrasing, along the lines of, if you want the corporate answer, we're just trying to get better and be competitive and blah, blah, blah. If you want the more spicy answer, it's that we're trying to get into the playoffs. And
yeah,
I think that's a fair place to set the bar if you're the Memphis Grizzlies. I don't think that it's the most likely scenario. I think my take is maybe a little spicy here, but I would say that I do think that they're better than a 28-win team, which is the Vegas total that you referenced. And if Zach Edey is playing, and this is the greatest unknown, right? You and I, we can't tell you right now what Zach Edey's ankle looks like in these workouts that he's doing, right? So if Zach Edey is on the court and healthier and impactful, you don't have a bad starting lineup at all. And you actually don't have really your depth is pretty good on this team. And so are they to the point where they're going to be competing with the high-end teams in the NBA? No, they're not ready for that. But can this team win 34, 35 games? Absolutely, right? I just picked a high-end sort of outcome there to sort of illustrate what it might look like if things go well for this team. And so, I think that predicting the Grizzlies to win 30-plus games is a totally reasonable place to be when you just look at the roster. They have a coach that hasn't really been put in a position to try to be competitive, and they have players on the team who are, veteran NBA players that have been productive players, and they're mixed in with some rookies, and we'll see how they play. But I think that might be a little spicy in terms of 37 wins on the total in the season.
All right, so Drew's heading into the late summer, potentially a little bit of a hiatus on the pot as a baby face. He's soaking in the adulation of the crowd. I'm going to make a heel turn.
Oh gosh.
You gave a take that this is what might happen if they catch good breaks, and I agree. That is what might happen if they catch good breaks. But I'm going to entertain, what if they don't, right? Which is possible too. And my take is going to be, and it's related to another take I made earlier about the Rookie of the Year race a little bit. We talked about it, one of the guys I'm in the bag for. My take is going to be that Taylor Jenkins' Milwaukee Bucks win more games than Thomas Isolo's Memphis Grizzlies this season.
Given that I can't even think about who's on the Bucks roster right now,
they've got a backcourt rotation I kind of like, including two guys I would like to see on the Memphis Grizzlies. They have Braden Burries and Ryan Rollins, who I really like, and that's not even like their lead guard, which is supposed to be Tyler Hero. So it's a pretty good backcourt. They got two centers in Khalil Ware and Miles Turner. They have some depth pieces.
They got Gary Trent Jr. back on a huge
They got
deal.
Gary Jr. Jaime Jaquez. They also they have a coach in Taylor Jenkins who A, has something to prove, B, has shown that he is good at using depth to navigate the regular season, and tanking's not a thing anymore, and the Eastern Conference is more squishy, I think, in the back half probably. So that's partly a Grizzlies, things could go poorly. It's partly a Milwaukee. I don't know if Milwaukee will be as bad as people think kind of take. Anyway,
I'm trying.
Bucks more wins than the Grizzlies. That's my final take. Not a prediction. I don't know whether I'll predict that or not. I reserve the right to make predictions, in October.
Okay.
So I don't know.
I am currently looking up what the Bucks win total is. I'm cheating a little bit. Okay. That's a regular spice.
Okay.
Because the Bucks win total is 26.5 this season compared to 28 or 28.5, I believe, on the Grizzlies. So not much separation there. I like the Grizzlies roster a hell of a lot more than I like the Bucks roster. I can tell you that for sure. You're right to be high on the backcourt, but I don't know. And Jenkins is the type of coach that we've seen take over these young teams and exceed expectations. So I don't think it's that spicy, but I don't think it's going to happen.
I thought it would be. I thought you would be reaching for a glass of milk or something with that one, but no, you're not.
No,
you're not
the
impressed.
Pacers one. The Pacers one about fell out of the seat. But that one isn't. I mean, I cheated though. It probably would have been spicier if I didn't cheat and look up the Bucks win total.
I've heard a lot of people in the media saying, "Oh, the Grizzlies pound the over." I haven't heard anyone saying that about the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, no, I haven't heard that at all. I'm maybe a little optimistic about the Grizzlies this season. All right, that's
that was not a prediction. Predictions will come later.
Yeah. All right, that's gonna do it for us. Real quick. There's more to life than basketball. I've been doing nothing, hanging out with my kid. My wife was out of town, so it was just me and the baby for the weekend, so that was fun. Doing playtime and all that. I cook. I made some pork chops I did an orange soy marinade, and then I reduced it down into a glaze and did some pork chops on the grill. So that was good on Monday. That was after eating frozen pizza and just crap while I was solo dad for the weekend. And I've been watching my Cubs. Pete Crow Armstrong's the most electric player in baseball. So that's what I've been doing. How about you, Chris?
I made some Osmond curry for dinner last night with some chicken. making a Cajun Alfredo pasta tonight. I've been in that kitchen in the heat of the stove as well. But my son got his driver's license yesterday, so shout out to Ben for that. Seen some good movies lately. End of Oak Street, pretty good. Camp Miasma, Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma, which opens only at the Cordova Cinema Grill in Memphis this weekend. Pretty good if that is, more your taste. Wife and I still watching Furious. I think I mentioned last week, which I sort of surprised at how good that show is and how much better it's gotten from the beginning. And I got family visiting next weekend, so we're trying to make some plans. I'm actually speaking of cooking, I'm gonna make sauces, homemade sauce, tomatillo and tomato sauces from the tomatoes and tomatillos in my garden. That's my big plan this weekend.
Very fun. Did you guys watch Silo? Natalie, Silo, Apple TV?
I couldn't get past season 1.
Okay. Well, there's a new season out. I watched the first 2 seasons. I'm trying to decide if I'm going to watch the third. So if you're watching the third and you like it, let me know.
I heard don't do it.
Don't do it. Okay, Natalie's saying don't do it. Okay. All right, well, that's going to do it for us. But I wanted to let everybody know that's listening, we'll be off next week unless something happens, and we may be a little slow on the pod for the next 3 weeks or so. Unless we get big Grizzlies news, in which case we'll come on and talk about it. But this is the dead period of the NBA, and so this is a chance for us to take a little bit of a breather before we come back in September to get you ready for training camp and the start of the preseason. And so that's all the more reason you should subscribe to the podcast and get the notifications for if we do have breaking news and we do decide to drop another podcast. But this might be it just for a little bit. So for Drew and for Chris, thanks for listening.